In what became the most remarkable transformation in Pine Ridge County's history, a violent confrontation at a humble lavender farm became the catalyst that would forever alter the fate of an entire region. A decorated Navy SEAL who had traded combat zones for peaceful fields was forced to revisit his warrior past when the ruthless Steel Vipers motorcycle gang made their gravest mistake. But what began as a brutal clash evolved into an unprecedented story of redemption, turning feared outlaws into guardians of the very rural community they once preyed upon. Before we dive into this jaw-dropping story of mistaken judgment and its extraordinary aftermath, take a moment to like and subscribe, because what happened next will leave you speechless. The morning sun painted long shadows across the lavender fields as Marcus Reynolds methodically checked his irrigation lines, his weathered hands moving with the same precision that once assembled tactical gear in far-off war zones. 15 years as a Navy SEAL had taught him the value of routine, attention to detail, and starting work before dawn. The sweet scent of lavender filled the air as he paused to observe his flourishing crops, a far cry from the arid mountains of Afghanistan, where he'd spent much of his military career. "Morning, Marcus," Sarah Chen's cheerful voice carried across the field. The elderly botanist made her way down the dirt path, carrying her signature wicker basket filled with fresh-baked zucchini bread and thermoses of her special blend tea. Her small frame moved carefully between the neat rows of purple blooms. "You're spoiling me again, Sarah," Marcus called back, straightening up and wiping his hands on his worn work pants. "Catherine would have loved your bread." His voice softened at the mention of his late wife, whose dream of a lavender farm had become his sanctuary after losing her to cancer. "Someone has to make sure you eat properly," Sarah replied, setting her basket on a nearby workbench. "Besides, you're the only one who helps me with my medicinal herb garden. This year's county fair competition is mine, thanks to your green thumb." The peaceful moment was shattered by the distant roar of motorcycles echoing through the valley. Sarah's face tightened with worry. "They're back. Third time this week." Marcus remained calm, methodically pouring 2 cups of tea. "The Steel Vipers are getting bolder. Sheriff Martinez says they've already hit 5 farms in the next county. They broke old Joe Miller's arm when he wouldn't pay their protection fees. His family's run that dairy farm for 4 generations." The motorcycles grew louder, their rumble seeming to shake the very ground. Marcus helped Sarah gather her things. "You should head home. I'll handle this." "Marcus Reynolds, don't you dare let those thugs intimidate you," Sarah warned, but hurried toward her car. She'd barely pulled away when 13 motorcycles roared up the gravel road to Reynolds' farm, their chrome gleaming menacingly in the morning sun. Their leader, a massive man known as Rattler Davidson, cut an imposing figure astride his custom chopper. His face, marked by a jagged scar running from temple to jaw, twisted into what passed for a smile as he surveyed the pristine lavender fields. Behind him, his crew spread out in a practiced formation, their boots crushing delicate plants as they moved. "Nice setup you got here, flower farmer," Rattler called out, cutting his engine. "Real pretty. Shame if something happened to it." His 12 companions positioned themselves strategically, some already pulling out heavy chains and pipes. Marcus stood quietly, hands relaxed at his sides. To these bikers, he appeared to be just another defenseless farmer about to learn a harsh lesson. But to anyone trained in combat, his stance would have revealed years of elite military training, his seemingly casual posture masking perfect readiness. "10,000 a month keeps your pretty flowers blooming," Rattler continued, pulling on thick leather gloves. "Otherwise..." He kicked over a tray of carefully tended lavender seedlings. "Accidents happen. Those were Sarah's medicinal plants," Marcus said softly. His voice carried no obvious threat, but something in his tone made 2 of the younger bikers exchange uncertain glances. Rattler didn't notice. "Oh, the old lady's herbs?" Rattler sneered. "Maybe we should pay her a visit too. Bet she's got some nice savings stashed away." Marcus's eyes hardened slightly, though his voice remained calm. "Last chance to leave peacefully. After that, things get complicated." The bikers erupted in laughter, the sound echoing across the fields where Marcus had found his peace. Rattler pulled out a heavy chain, wrapping it around his fist. Boys, teach Farmer John here what happens when people don't respect the steel vipers. A biker nicknamed Cobra moved first, swinging a lead pipe at Marcus's head with practiced brutality. But Marcus wasn't there anymore. With movements honed through countless combat operations and years of special warfare training, he sidestepped the attack with fluid grace. His hand shot out, striking a precise nerve cluster in Cobra's wrist. The pipe clattered to the ground, followed immediately by Cobra himself, who dropped to his knees, gasping for air. What the hell? A massive biker called Bruiser charged forward like a raging bull. Marcus moved like flowing water, redirecting the larger man's momentum. In one smooth motion, he sent Bruiser crashing into a water trough. The big man surfaced, sputtering and shocked, his leather vest now soaked and heavy. Rattler's face contorted with rage, his scar growing livid. Slash! Venom! Kill him! The two remaining bikers pulled hunting knives, circling Marcus cautiously. They attacked together, expecting to overwhelm him with their coordinated assault. Instead, their teamwork became their undoing as Marcus used their own momentum against them, causing them to tangle with each other. One knife went spinning into the lavender field. The other buried itself harmlessly in a wooden post. Rattler stared in disbelief as his crew lay groaning on the ground. "You're dead, flower boy." He swung his heavy chain in a deadly arc aimed at Marcus's head. Marcus caught the chain with one hand, his years of training evident in the seemingly impossible feat. "That's what the Taliban said too," he said quietly, yanking the chain and pulling Rattler off balance. They were wrong. The fight ended quickly after that, when Sheriff Martinez arrived 5 minutes later. Accompanied by 2 deputy vehicles, he found 13 members of the notorious Steel Vipers zip-tied with their own bike chains, sitting in Marcus's herb garden, looking dazed and defeated. "Jesus, Reynolds," the sheriff sighed, taking in the scene. "Couldn't leave the excitement back overseas?" Marcus was already carefully replanting Sarah's damaged medicinal herbs. "They threatened Sarah, Diego. You know I couldn't let that stand." But this was just the beginning. No one could have predicted how this single confrontation would spiral into a story of redemption, healing, and unexpected brotherhood. The peaceful farmer who had tried so hard to leave violence behind was about to embark on his most important mission yet. One that would change not just his life, but the lives of everyone in Pine Ridge County. Word of the confrontation at Reynolds Farm spread through the region like wildfire. By sunset, Sheriff Martinez's phone wouldn't stop ringing with calls from concerned citizens and reporters trying to verify the rumors. 13 members of the Steel Vipers, a gang that had terrorized 3 counties, taken down by a single farmer growing lavender. At the county jail, Rattler Davidson nursed his bruised ego along with his injuries. His lieutenant, Lucas Wolf Reeves, listened through the cell bars as Rattler spat out orders. "Get everyone together. I want that farm burned to the ground by morning." "Boss, maybe we should think this through," Wolf suggested, watching other Steel Vipers gather in the jail's visiting area. Something wasn't adding up about this farmer. The way he moved, the way he fought. "Are you questioning me?" Rattler's voice turned dangerous. That man humiliated the Steel Vipers. Nobody does that and lives to tell about it. The pieces were in motion. A simple act of defense had sparked a chain of events that would reshape an entire community. But first, blood would be spilled, trust would be broken, and unlikely alliances would form in the most unexpected places. The real battle for Pine Ridge County was about to begin. Meanwhile, at Reynolds Farm, Deputy Lisa Torres photographed the scene while Marcus cleaned up the mess from the fight. "Mr. Reynolds, you need to accept protection. When the rest of the Steel Vipers find out about this—" "I appreciate the concern, Deputy," Marcus interrupted gently, continuing to replant Sarah's damaged herbs with military precision. "But I can handle myself." Lisa wasn't giving up. "Sir, there are at least 40 more gang members out there. They've never let an insult go unanswered. Last month they burned down the Peterson farm, just for refusing to pay protection money." "Then maybe it's time someone stood up to them." Marcus's voice remained calm, but Lisa noticed how his eyes constantly scanned the horizon, checking sightlines and potential approach routes. This was not the behavior of a simple farmer. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see what happens next in this incredible story of redemption. Let us know in the comments if you've ever witnessed someone standing up to bullies in your community. Back at the station, Deputy Torres shared her observations with Sheriff Martinez. "Diego, something's off about Reynolds. The way he moves, the way he took down 13 armed men, he's had serious training." Martinez sighed, looking at a folder marked classified on his desk. "Lisa, some things are better left alone. Just know that Marcus Reynolds is the last person we need to worry about." That evening, Sarah refused to leave the farm despite Marcus's protests. She sat at his kitchen table stubbornly arranging fresh-cut lavender and medicinal herbs. "Those thugs threatened my garden. Besides, someone needs to make sure you eat a proper dinner." A truck pulled up outside. Dr. Maya Rodriguez, the local veterinarian and Marcus's late wife Catherine's best friend, hurried in. "Marcus, I just heard. Are you okay?" Her eyes quickly scanned him for injuries, the habit of a medical professional never quite leaving her. "I'm fine, Maya. Just some garden maintenance today." Marcus managed a small smile. "Garden maintenance?" She lowered her voice. "The whole county's talking about how you single-handedly took down half the steel vipers. They're saying Rattler Davidson is out for blood." "Let him come," Marcus said quietly, but something in his tone made both women exchange worried glances. At the community center, Pastor David Chen, Sarah's son, was dealing with the aftermath in his own way. The steel vipers had been terrorizing his congregation for months, demanding protection money from church fundraisers. He called an emergency meeting with local business owners. "We can't let Marcus face this alone," Joe Miller argued from his wheelchair, his broken arm still in a cast. "The vipers will come back with everything they've got." "But what can we do?" Frank Turner from the hardware store asked. "They're killers, we're just farmers and shopkeepers." Pastor Chen looked thoughtful. "Maybe that's been our problem all along. We've been acting alone. It's time we stood together." At the Steel Vipers warehouse hideout, over 40 bikes lined up as Rattler laid out his plan for revenge from his jail cell via phone. But Wolf couldn't shake his unease. He'd served in Iraq, and something about the way Reynolds had fought seemed hauntingly familiar. "Check this out," Cobra said, showing Wolf his phone. He'd been digging into Reynolds' background. "Guy moved here 3 years ago, right after his wife died. Bought the farm with his military pension. But before that, nothing. It's like he didn't exist." "Rattler, we need to know more about this farmer before we move against him," Wolf warned, his military instincts screaming danger. "Something's not right." "We know all we need to know," Rattler snarled through the phone. "He's dead tonight. We show Pine Ridge County what happens when you disrespect the Steel Vipers." Young Michael Chen, Pastor Chen's son and Sarah's grandson, watched from his hiding spot behind some crates. He'd followed the bikers hoping to gather information to help Marcus. His heart raced as he heard their plans, but as he turned to slip away, a floorboard creaked under his foot. "What was that?" Bruiser's voice boomed. "Check the perimeter!" Michael ran, his feet pounding on the gravel. Behind him, motorcycles roared to life. The boy knew these back roads well from his paper route, but the bikes were faster. Headlights illuminated his path as the gang closed in. Just when Michael thought he was done for, a familiar pickup truck appeared from a side road. The passenger door flew open. "Get in!" Marcus commanded. Michael dove into the truck as Marcus executed a perfect evasive driving maneuver, throwing up a cloud of dust that blinded their pursuers. In the rearview mirror, Michael watched the frustrated bikers pull up short. "How did you know?" He gasped, his heart still racing. "Sarah called. Said you were acting suspicious at dinner." Marcus's voice was calm, but his eyes never stopped checking the mirrors. "That was a brave thing you did, Michael." "Stupid, but brave." "They're coming tonight," Michael blurted out. "All of them. They're going to burn down the farm." Marcus nodded, unsurprised. "I know. That's why I need you to help me get everyone to safety." The truck turned toward town, where lights were starting to come on as word spread of the impending confrontation. Pine Ridge County was about to experience a night that would change everything. The question wasn't whether the Steel Vipers would attack, but whether one former Navy SEAL could protect an entire community from their vengeance. And unknown to everyone, this night would set in motion events that would either tear Pine Ridge County apart or forge it into something stronger than anyone could imagine. The real battle wasn't just about protecting a farm, it was about saving the soul of a community. If you're enjoying this story of courage and redemption, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next when the entire Steel Vipers gang faces off against one highly trained veteran. Leave a comment below telling us what you think Marcus has planned. The old church basement hummed with nervous energy as Marcus addressed the gathered townspeople. Sheriff Martinez stood by the door, his deputies strategically positioned around the building. Outside, the distant rumble of motorcycles grew steadily louder, echoing through the darkening valley. "Everyone stays here until it's over," Marcus instructed, his voice carrying the quiet authority that made people listen. "Sheriff Martinez and Deputy Torres will keep you safe." "But it's your farm they're coming to burn," Joe Miller protested from his wheelchair. "Everything you've worked for." "Buildings can be rebuilt," Marcus replied evenly, checking his watch. "Lives can't." His eyes met Sarah's determined gaze. "No arguments, Sarah, you too." "The hell with that," Sarah declared, standing up. "Catherine would never forgive me if I let you face this alone. Besides, I've got fresh chamomile tea brewing in your kitchen." A ghost of a smile crossed Marcus's face. "The tea can wait." "That tea isn't for you," Sarah said firmly, her small frame somehow filling the room. After a good fight, even the worst people need a moment to think. Sometimes the best way to end a war is with a hot cup of tea and a willing ear. The stage was set. As Marcus stepped out into the darkness, no one could have predicted how this night would transform not just Pine Ridge County, but the very nature of redemption itself. Outside, Sheriff Martinez pulled Marcus aside. "You sure about this? I can have state police here in an hour." "An hour's too long," Marcus replied, checking his watch. "And this needs to end tonight, Diego. These people have lived in fear long enough." The sheriff nodded reluctantly. "You know, when you moved here, I thought you were done with all this." "So did I." Marcus looked up at the darkening sky. "Sometimes we don't choose our battles, they choose us." Back at Reynolds' farm, Marcus worked quickly and methodically. To any observer, his preparations might have seemed strange. He wasn't boarding up windows or setting up barricades. Instead, he was strategically positioning farm equipment, adjusting irrigation systems, and setting up work lights in seemingly random patterns. Meanwhile, the Steel Vipers gathered at their staging area. Wolf paced in front of his assembled force, 40 riders strong, the largest gathering of the gang in years. "This ends tonight." Wolf's voice carried over the rumbling engines, relaying Rattler's orders from jail. "Reynolds humiliated us, made us look weak. After we're done with his farm, no one will dare stand against the Steel Vipers again." But Wolf noticed something odd. Their most violent members were cheering, but some of the veterans in the group looked uncomfortable. He recognized the look. He'd seen it in the mirror often enough. It was the face of men who'd seen enough violence in their lives. "Cobra, Bruiser, you take the east approach," Wolf ordered, following Rattler's plan. "My team hits from the west. I want that place surrounded." "Boss," one of the veteran bikers spoke up. "Something's not right. Reynolds had hours to clear out, but my sources say he's still there. Alone." "Good," someone grinned. "Makes it easier." "No," Wolf insisted, his military instincts screaming. "It makes it suspicious. No normal farmer stays to face 40 armed men alone." "You questioning Rattler's orders?" Cobra growled, getting in Wolf's face. "I'm trying to keep us alive," Wolf shot back. "I served, remember? The way Reynolds moved, the way he set us up. He's not just some farmer. Don't care if he's goddamn Superman," Cobra snarled. "Tonight he's a dead man." The bikers roared off into the darkness, splitting into their assigned groups. But Wolf held back, watching through his binoculars. Something about the farm's layout had changed. The work lights created strange shadows, and the equipment wasn't where it had been that morning. At the church, Michael couldn't sit still. "We should be helping him." Sarah put a hand on her grandson's shoulder. "Watch and learn, child. Sometimes the quietest men are the most dangerous." Deputy Torres frowned at her radio. "Sheriff, we're getting reports of explosions at the Steel Vipers warehouse." "That's impossible," Martinez replied. "All their guys are headed to Reynolds' farm." "Not all of them," Michael grinned. "I might have mentioned where they keep their fuel to a certain farmer." The night was about to become legend in Pine Ridge County, and it all started because a peaceful man who grew lavender understood that sometimes the only way to bring peace was to confront violence with something unexpected. Not greater violence, but strategic wisdom born from years of combat experience. If you're on the edge of your seat, make sure to hit that subscribe button. The next part will show you exactly how one highly trained veteran turns his peaceful farm into a battlefield these bikers never expected. Drop a comment below with your prediction about what Marcus has planned. The first wave of bikers hit the irrigation pipes Marcus had repositioned. Their bikes slipped in the mud, tires finding no traction on the suddenly slick ground. The work lights, strategically placed, destroyed their night vision while creating long shadows where Marcus could move unseen. "Spread out," Wolf's voice carried over the confusion. "Find him." But Marcus was already moving, a shadow among shadows. One by one, bikers found themselves disarmed and disabled by an opponent they couldn't see. Years of SEAL operations experience merged with intimate knowledge of the farm's layout, turning the peaceful lavender fields into a tactical advantage. "He's picking us apart," someone shouted into the darkness. Wolf, watching from the road, saw the pattern emerging. "Son of a," he muttered. "He's using SEAL team sweep formations. This guy's not just military, he's special operations." Cobra, enraged, grabbed a gas can. Burn it all." But when he tried to splash fuel on the barn, he found the can filled with water. All their fuel reserves had been destroyed in the warehouse explosion. "Looking for this?" Marcus's voice came from the darkness. He held up a fuel cap. "Never leave your supply lines unprotected. Basic tactical error." Cobra spun around, firing his pistol blindly. The shot went wide, and suddenly Marcus was there, disarming him with practiced ease. Cobra found himself face down in the lavender field, his arm locked behind him. "You know what your biggest mistake was?" Marcus asked quietly, his voice carrying in the night air. "Not the protection racket. Not threatening my farm." He tightened his hold slightly. "It was threatening Sarah. She makes tea for the VA hospital every week. Some of your own men probably had it." The fight was over in less than 20 minutes. When Sheriff Martinez arrived, he found 30 bikers zip-tied and sitting quietly in the barn. Some were nursing injuries, but none were seriously hurt. Another 10 had fled into the night. But it was what happened next that would truly change Pine Ridge County forever. Inside the warmly lit barn, the captured Steel Vipers sat in an odd silence. The fight drained from them. The sweet scent of lavender mingled with motor oil and hay. Marcus moved among them, not as a captor, but as something else entirely, checking their injuries, offering water, and most surprisingly, asking questions. "You served with the 75th Rangers," Marcus said to one of the younger members, noticing his faded tattoo. "2 tours in Kandahar," the biker muttered, then looked up sharply. "How did you—" "The way you moved during the fight. Rangers have a distinctive style." Marcus handed him a cup of Sarah's chamomile tea. Similar conversations sparked around the barn as Marcus identified more veterans among the captured bikers, 15 in total, including Wolf, who watched the exchanges with growing understanding. The night that was meant to destroy Reynolds' farm was about to become something entirely different. A beginning rather than an end. A chance for lost warriors to find their way home. "You're not just some farmer," Wolf finally said, the pieces falling into place. "The way you set this up, the fields as a kill zone, the lights for disorientation, the supply line disruption, that's SEAL tactics." The barn fell silent. Cobra, still secured but now sitting on a hay bale, jerked his head up. "SEAL Team 6, Marcus confirmed quietly. 15 years, retired as senior chief. Several of the veteran members straightened instinctively, military bearing returning automatically. "Check his move against Bruiser," Wolf continued, turning to his fellow veterans. "That was a SEAL takedown technique. And the way he used the terrain, man, we never stood a chance." Sarah chose that moment to enter the barn, ignoring Marcus's exasperated look. She carried a large basket covered with a checkered cloth. "Well, if you boys are done trying to burn down my friend's farm, I brought tea and sandwiches." The absurdity of the moment, a tiny elderly woman offering refreshments to captured gang members, broke the tension. A few bikers actually laughed. "Sarah," Marcus started. "Hush now," she cut him off. "Catherine always said you'd forget to eat if someone didn't remind you." She began distributing paper plates. "Besides, my grandson Michael tells me some of these boys are veterans. No veteran goes hungry on my watch." The mention of Michael made several bikers shift uncomfortably, remembering chasing the kid earlier. But Sarah acted as if she was serving tea at a church social. Don't miss what happens next in this incredible story of transformation. Hit subscribe and the notification bell to see how one woman's kindness and a veteran's wisdom begin to change hearts that violence couldn't touch. Comment below to share your favorite moment so far. Mrs. Chen, one of the veteran bikers, spoke up, his teacup held awkwardly in leather-gloved hands. "We're sorry about earlier with your grandson." "Drinking my tea is a good start toward making amends," Sarah replied firmly, arranging cookies on a plate. "Now who wants honey in theirs?" Sheriff Martinez arrived to find an almost surreal scene. Captured bikers eating sandwiches while Marcus and Wolf discussed shared experiences from Afghanistan. The lavender-scented air was filled with quiet conversation and the clink of teacups. "Martinez," Marcus called him over. "I think we might have a solution that doesn't involve filling up your jail." "I'm listening." The sheriff surveyed the scene, his experienced eyes noting how the atmosphere had shifted from hostile to something entirely different. Marcus gestured to the veterans among the group. "These men aren't criminals at heart. They're warriors who lost their way, found the wrong kind of brotherhood." Wolf nodded slowly. "The Steel Vipers. It was supposed to be about having each other's backs. Somewhere along the way, under Rattler's leadership, it became about intimidation and fear." "That true?" Martinez asked the group. One by one, the veteran bikers nodded. Even some of the non-veterans looked thoughtful, teacups and sandwich plates in their hands. "Here's my proposal," Marcus continued. "Those who want to change, who want to find a better path, I'm offering you a chance. The farm needs help. More importantly, I know other vets who need help, people who understand what you've been through." "You're crazy if you think," Cobra started. "Shut up, Cobra," Wolf cut him off. "For once in your life, just shut up." He turned to Marcus. "What exactly are you offering?" "A program. Part work, part therapy. The VA's been asking me to start one anyway. You help rebuild what you tried to destroy tonight. Learn some farming skills, get some counseling, and maybe find a better way to use your brotherhood." Deputy Torres, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. "Sheriff, we could make it part of a rehabilitation program. Alternative sentencing. Those who complete it get clean records." Martinez nodded. "Those who don't go to jail with Rattler." "I'm in," said the young ranger immediately. Others began nodding. "You're all weak." Cobra tried to stand but couldn't with his hand secured. "The Steel Vipers aren't some therapy group." "No," Wolf agreed, standing up. "We were supposed to be brothers, and we forgot what that means." He faced Marcus. "If you're serious about this offer, I know some other vets who could use it too. Guys who haven't fallen in with us yet, but they're close." Dr. Maya Rodriguez arrived to check on the injured bikers. "Marcus," she said quietly, "Catherine would be proud of this." It's exactly what she would have done. The mention of his late wife made Marcus pause. Catherine had always believed in second chances. It's why she'd supported his dream of turning the farm into a place of healing. As the night wore on, plans began taking shape. Sheriff Martinez made calls to the DA's office. Dr. Rodriguez offered to coordinate with VA counselors. Sarah simply kept pouring tea and serving sandwiches, as if this was the most natural thing in the world. By dawn, 32 members of the Steel Vipers, including all 15 veterans, had accepted Marcus's offer. Cobra and his most hardcore followers would face charges, but the majority of the gang was taking a different path. "You know," Wolf said as the sun rose, "we need a new name. Can't keep Steel Vipers if we're going to change." How about the Lavender Legion? Michael suggested, having snuck back to the farm despite his grandmother's protests. The former bikers groaned, but there were smiles behind their objections. Something had shifted during that long night in the barn. A new kind of brotherhood taking root, nourished by Sarah's sandwiches and Marcus's quiet understanding. None of them could have predicted how this strange night would transform not just their lives, but the entire community of Pine Ridge County. The war that everyone expected had instead become something far more powerful, a chance for redemption. And it all started because one former Navy SEAL believed that even the hardest hearts could change when given the right soil in which to grow. If this story of transformation touched your heart, make sure to hit that subscribe button. The next part will show you how these former enemies begin working together to create something extraordinary. Leave a comment below if you've ever witnessed someone turn their life around in an unexpected way. 1 week after the confrontation at Reynolds' farm, the morning quiet was broken by the rumble of motorcycles. But this time, they came not to destroy but to rebuild. Wolf led a group of 25 former Steel Vipers up the gravel drive, their bikes gleaming in the early sun. "Still can't believe we're doing this," muttered Bruiser, looking uncomfortable without his usual leather vest. "Better than jail," Cobra's younger brother Snake reminded him, eyeing the scorched remains of their old warehouse. Besides, after what happened to Rattler, they'd all heard how Rattler and his loyal followers had tried to ambush Marcus at the local diner 3 days after the barn incident. The fight lasted exactly 30 seconds. Rattler ended up with a broken jaw and a 5-year sentence, while Marcus calmly finished his tea. Marcus stood waiting by the barn, his posture relaxed but alert. "Glad you made it. Hope you all had breakfast. Sarah sent us with these." Wolf held up a familiar basket. "Said something about growing boys needing proper food." "Of course she did." Marcus smiled slightly. "First thing we need to do is clear the damaged fields. Those bikes of yours tore up quite a bit of soil." The work was hard, but none of the men complained. They'd expected harsh treatment, militant discipline. Instead, they found something unexpected: respect. Marcus worked alongside them, teaching rather than commanding. "See these lavender bushes?" Marcus demonstrated proper replanting techniques. "The roots tell you everything. Just like in combat, you need to read the signs, understand what's beneath the surface." By mid-morning, Dr. Rodriguez arrived to set up the first counseling session in the converted barn office. "Who's first?" she asked, clipboard ready. The men exchanged nervous glances until Wolf stepped forward. "Guess that's me. Lead by example, right?" As Wolf disappeared into the office, Deputy Torres pulled up in her patrol car. She'd been assigned as liaison for the rehabilitation program. "How's it going?" "Better than expected," Marcus replied, watching Bruiser carefully showing Michael how to check soil pH levels. "They're warriors at heart, just needed a new mission." The local news crew showed up around noon, drawn by the unusual sight of former gang members working a lavender farm. Marcus kept them at a distance but allowed a few photos. "These men deserve privacy while they rebuild their lives," he told the reporters firmly. Pastor Chen arrived with lunch, courtesy of his congregation. "Church council voted unanimously to support the program," he announced. "We're converting the old youth center into a dormitory for veterans who need housing." The transformation wasn't just physical. As the men worked the land, stories began to emerge. Snake had been a combat medic before PTSD drove him to the gang. Bruiser lost his family to divorce after 3 tours left him unable to readjust to civilian life. Each had sought brotherhood in the Steel Vipers, finding temporary relief in violence and intimidation. "It's strange," Wolf commented during a water break. "In the gang, we thought we were free, but we were just building another prison." That afternoon, Joe Miller arrived from his dairy farm, his arm still in a cast. Everyone tensed, remembering they were the ones who'd broken it. But Joe just wheeled himself up to Bruiser. "Here, you used to be a mechanic," he said gruffly. "My delivery truck's been making a noise. Want to take a look?" More community members began stopping by. Maria Gutierrez, whose farm had once been targeted by the Steel Vipers, brought homemade tamales. "My father always said hungry men can't think straight," she declared, setting up an impromptu feast in the barn. The former bikers were bewildered by the acceptance. They'd expected hatred, fear, not homemade food and job offers. "Why are they doing this?" Snake asked Marcus quietly. "Because that's what community means," Marcus replied. "When I came back from my last tour, this town helped me heal. Now it's your turn." As evening approached, Sarah arrived with more food, accompanied by Helen Martinez, the sheriff's wife. "Ladies Auxiliary wants to help," Helen announced. "We're organizing a fundraiser for the veteran housing program." "Never thought I'd see the day," Sheriff Martinez commented, watching his wife chat with former gang members about her famous peach cobbler. "You sure about all this, Marcus?" "They're not bad men, Diego, just lost their way." Marcus paused, remembering his own struggles after leaving the SEALs. Sometimes the hardest part of war is coming home. Stay tuned for the next part of this incredible journey, where you'll see how these men face their biggest challenge yet, earning back the trust of the very community they once terrorized. Hit subscribe and the notification bell to make sure you don't miss it. Share in the comments if you believe in the power of second chances. The sheriff nodded thoughtfully. Rattler's trial starts next week. His hardcore followers are looking at serious time, but the DA's agreed to alternative sentencing for anyone who completes your program. As the sun set, the men prepared to leave. They'd accomplished more in one day than any of them expected. The damaged fields were cleared, new lavender seedlings planted, and the first counseling sessions completed. "Same time tomorrow?" Wolf asked, wiping sweat from his face. "Be here at dawn," Marcus confirmed. "And Wolf, tell the others, the ones still on the fence, doors open if they want help." That night, after everyone had gone, Marcus sat on his porch with Sarah, sharing a cup of tea. "Catherine would be so proud," Sarah said softly. This was her dream too, wasn't it? Making the farm a place of healing. Marcus nodded, looking out over the fields where former enemies had spent the day learning to create rather than destroy. "She always said everyone deserves a second chance." "Well," Sarah stood, gathering her empty basket. "I'd say you're off to a good start. Those boys remind me of you when you first came home. Lost, angry, needing purpose." "They're good men," Marcus said. "Just need someone to remind them of that." As Sarah drove away, Marcus checked his phone. 7 more former Steel Vipers had texted asking to join the program, and Joe Miller had sent a message about hiring 3 of them at his dairy farm. The seeds of change had been planted. Now they just needed time to grow. 2 weeks into the rehabilitation program, trouble arrived in the form of 30 motorcycles roaring into Pine Ridge County. The Black Scorpions, a rival gang from the next state, had caught wind of the Steel Vipers' apparent weakness. Marcus was teaching a group of veterans about irrigation systems when Wolf rode up fast to the farm. "We've got problems. Big ones." "Black Scorpions?" Marcus asked calmly, though his eyes had already started scanning the horizon. "They're at Joe's dairy farm right now, threatening Snake and Bruiser. Word got out about our change in management. Get everyone back to the farm. Now." At Miller's dairy, Snake and Bruiser were facing down the Black Scorpion's leader, a mountain of a man known as Reaper. Both former Steel Vipers had been working legitimate jobs there for 2 weeks. "Look at you two," Reaper sneered, knocking over a display of feed bags. Playing farmhand, drawing honest paychecks, Steel Vipers turned into steel puppies. "Leave it alone, Reaper," Snake warned. "We're done with that life. Nobody's done until we say they're done." Reaper knocked over a tool cart. "Rattler might be in jail, but you still owe us protection payments from his deals." Joe Miller wheeled himself out of his office, his healing arm still in a brace. "This is my property. Get out before I call the sheriff." Reaper laughed. "Call whoever you want, old man. By the time they get here." "They're already here," came Marcus's quiet voice from behind them. The Black Scorpions turned to find Marcus standing there, accompanied by Sheriff Martinez and Deputy Torres. Behind them, trucks and cars were pulling up, carrying more former Steel Vipers and townspeople. "This isn't your business, farmer," Reaper growled. "Actually, it is," Marcus stepped forward. "These men work for Joe. Joe's a friend. That makes it my business." Reaper looked around at his gang. 30 of us, 1 of you. I like those odds." You might want to check your math, Sheriff Martinez commented as more vehicles arrived. Former Steel Vipers who joined the rehabilitation program were pulling up, along with dozens of townspeople. Even Sarah was there, armed with her wooden spoon. "This is what you left the Steel Vipers for?" Reaper taunted Snake and Bruiser. "Playing farmer with some local hero?" "No," Snake replied, standing straight. "We left because we found something better than fear. We found purpose and community." Bruiser stepped forward, moving to stand beside Marcus. "If you're on the edge of your seat, don't forget to subscribe. The next part will show you how Marcus handles this new threat, and it's not what you might expect. Leave a comment below with what you think will happen next." Reaper's face darkened. "You're dead. All of you." He reached inside his jacket. What happened next became another Pine Ridge County legend. Before Reaper could draw his weapon, Marcus moved with the liquid speed that had made him legendary in the SEALs. The giant biker found himself disarmed and face down on the concrete. "Now," Marcus said conversationally, maintaining his hold on Reaper, "we going to have a civilized discussion about territory and respect?" The Black Scorpions reached for weapons but froze as Sheriff Martinez's deputies emerged from strategic positions, weapons ready. More importantly, they found themselves surrounded by determined townspeople and reformed bikers standing shoulder to shoulder. "See, here's the thing," Marcus continued, his voice carrying to everyone. "Pine Ridge County isn't just some territory to be carved up. These people aren't marks for your protection racket. They're my friends, my family." "Our family," Wolf corrected, stepping forward. The other former Steel Vipers nodded. "So you have two choices," Marcus went on. "Leave now and spread the word that Pine Ridge County is off limits, or..." He applied slightly more pressure, making Reaper gasp. "We can continue this discussion at the sheriff's station. Your call." For a tense moment, no one moved. Then one of the Black Scorpions gunned his bike and took off. Others followed quickly. Within minutes, only Reaper remained. Okay, Reaper wheezed. "We're gone. Pine Ridge County's yours." "No," Marcus corrected, helping him up but maintaining a firm grip. "Pine Ridge County belongs to its people, remember that." As the Black Scorpions retreated, Joe Miller approached Snake and Bruiser. "Well, boys, that was an exciting lunch break. Now about that inventory you were cataloging." The casual return to normalcy broke the tension. People began dispersing, though many headed to Sarah's house. She'd announced an impromptu celebration dinner. That evening, the farm's barn was packed. Former enemies sat together, sharing Sarah's cooking, while Dr. Rodriguez led a group therapy session. The Black Scorpion's appearance had shaken some of the veterans, bringing up old traumas. "I almost went for a weapon," Snake admitted during the session. "It was pure instinct." "But you didn't," Marcus reminded him. "You chose a different path, that's what matters." Sheriff Martinez, enjoying Sarah's pie, pulled Marcus aside. "Word's spreading about your program. Got calls from 3 other counties asking how to set up something similar." "It's not my program," Marcus replied. "It belongs to everyone here. These men, this town, they're doing the real work." Looking around the barn, Marcus saw Bruiser teaching Michael about engine maintenance while Sarah supervised. Wolf was discussing plans for a veteran-run security company with Joe Miller. Pastor Chen was organizing a community garden project with Maria Gutierrez. "You know," Deputy Torres commented, joining them, "when you took down Rattler and the Steel Vipers, I thought that was impressive. But this," she gestured at the scene before them, "this is the real victory." Late that night, after everyone had gone home, Marcus sat on his porch steps. The confrontation with the Black Scorpions had proven something important. The changes in these men were real. When tested, they'd chosen their new community over their old ways. Wolf appeared out of the darkness, taking a seat beside him. "Hell of a day. Could have gone badly," Marcus acknowledged. "But it didn't. Because you showed us there's something worth fighting for besides ourselves." Wolf paused. "The others wanted me to ask you something. We've been talking about a new name for our group. Don't miss the next part where these reformed men reveal their new identity and face an even bigger challenge that will test everything they've built. Hit subscribe and the notification bell to see what happens next. Let us know in the comments what you think their new name should be." The next morning's gathering at Reynolds' farm became a milestone. The former Steel Vipers had assembled in the barn, which now served as their unofficial headquarters. "Lavender Knights," Wolf announced. "That's what we want to call ourselves." Marcus watched from the corner, seeing the pride in their faces as they discussed their new identity. The men had removed their old Steel Viper patches, replacing them with simple black vests. "No flashy logos," Snake explained. "No threatening symbols. Just the words, Lavender Knights, and a sprig of lavender. Because this farm gave us roots when we needed them most." Deputy Torres, present for the announcement, nodded approvingly. "It's official then. I'll register it as a legitimate organization with the state." The transformation went beyond just names. Joe Miller had hired 6 more veterans at his dairy farm. Maria Gutierrez was teaching 3 others about organic farming methods. Even Frank Turner had taken on a few at his hardware store. "Got a situation." Sheriff Martinez arrived, looking concerned. "Remember those 3 counties that asked about copying your program? They're sending people today. Lots of people." "How many?" 5 sheriff's departments, dozen social workers, VA representatives, and..." Martinez hesitated. "About 30 gang members wanting to reform. Word spread about what you did with the Black Scorpions." "We barely have enough space for our current program." Marcus rubbed his temples. "That's not all," Martinez continued. "Media caught wind, national networks this time." As if on cue, they heard vehicles approaching. Looking out the barn door, they saw a convoy of cars and trucks heading toward the farm. News vans brought up the rear, their satellite dishes visible from a distance. "Well," Sarah appeared with her basket of muffins. "Good thing I baked extra." The next few hours were chaos. Law enforcement officials from neighboring counties wanted to know about security protocols. Social workers asked about counseling methods. VA reps discussed funding options, and the media wanted to film everything. But it was the arrival of the other gang members that proved most interesting. They came from different groups, some rivals, some allies of the former Steel Vipers. All had heard about Pine Ridge County's transformation and wanted the same chance. "It's like you said," Wolf told Marcus as they watched the new arrivals. "Warriors who lost their way, just needed someone to show them another path." Marcus gathered everyone in the main field. The crowd had swollen to over 100 people. Officials, media, curious townspeople, and former gang members all mixed together. "Let me be clear," Marcus addressed them. "This isn't a quick fix or an easy way out of legal troubles. What we're doing here is hard work. It's about rebuilding, not just farms or businesses, but lives." He gestured to the Lavender Knights. "These men chose to change. They work every day to earn back trust. They face their traumas in therapy. They learn new skills. They help their community. If you're not ready for that commitment, there's the road." Nobody left. Right then, Marcus continued. "First thing, everyone with a camera needs to leave. These men deserve privacy while they rebuild their lives." The media protested, but Sheriff Martinez and his deputies firmly escorted them to the property line. One reporter tried arguing about public interest. "The public's interest," Marcus told him, "is in successful rehabilitation, not reality TV. These men need space to heal." Once the cameras were gone, the real work began. Dr. Rodriguez and other counselors set up intake interviews. Pastor Chen coordinated with churches from other counties about housing. Joe Miller and Frank Turner talked about job training programs. The Lavender Knights took charge of the new arrivals, showing them around, explaining the program. Their own experiences made them perfect mentors. "See that field?" Bruiser told a group, pointing to the lavender. "Week ago it was dirt. Now it's growing flowers. That's what this place does. Takes broken things and makes them grow again." Margaret Martinez, Sarah, and other town leaders organized a massive welcome dinner. The sight of former gang members sitting down with law enforcement and townspeople to share a meal was powerful. "Never thought I'd see something like this," Deputy Torres admitted, watching former rivals working together to set up tables. As the sun set, Marcus found a quiet moment with Wolf. "You realize what this means. We're going to need more space, more resources." Wolf smiled. "Already handled. The Lavender Knights took a vote. We're donating all our seized assets, money, properties, everything, to expand the program. That's significant money, Marcus observed. Blood money, Wolf corrected. Time it served something good. Later that night, after most had left, the core group gathered in the barn. They had flip charts full of plans, housing developments, training programs, counseling schedules. It's growing beyond just us, Snake said, looking at the plans. That's the point, Marcus replied. Every person we help becomes someone who can help others. Michael, who'd been quiet all day, spoke up. You know what this means? The Lavender Knights could be everywhere, helping people in other towns like you helped us. The men exchanged looks. The idea of their redemption spreading, helping others find their way back. It was powerful. One step at a time, Marcus cautioned. First, we need to make sure we do right by these new arrivals. Sarah brought out one last pie. Well, better get started then. Hope you boys are ready for some long days ahead. As they shared the pie, plans were made, duties assigned. The Lavender Knights were no longer just a local group of reformed bikers. They were becoming something bigger, a model for change, a beacon of hope for others lost in darkness. 3 months after the program's expansion, Rattler's trial was drawing to a close. The courthouse was packed as Marcus took the stand, his testimony crucial to the prosecution's case. Mr. Reynolds, the prosecutor began, please tell the court about your interactions with the defendant and the Steel Vipers. Rattler glared from the defendant's table, but Marcus remained composed. They came to my farm demanding protection money. When I refused, they threatened violence. And you, a simple farmer, managed to subdue multiple armed attackers? Marcus met Rattler's eyes. I'm a retired Navy SEAL. There was nothing simple about it. The revelation caused a stir in the courtroom. Rattler's face went pale as 15 years of classified operations were briefly summarized for the court. And after subduing them, the prosecutor continued, you offered rehabilitation instead of prosecution to those willing to change. Yes, because I recognized what they really were, lost warriors who needed a new mission. Rattler's lawyer tried challenging Marcus's testimony, but footage from multiple phones showed exactly what happened that night. When asked about the Black Scorpions incident, Marcus simply stated, they chose to leave peacefully. Back at Reynolds' farm, the expansion was in full swing. The Lavender Knights had purchased adjacent properties using their surrendered assets. New dormitories housed 50 veterans in recovery. Training facilities and counseling centers operated daily. Problems at the Northfield, Wolf reported as Marcus returned from court. New guys got into a fight, old gang rivalries dying hard. Marcus found Snake and Bruiser already handling the situation, separating two groups of former rivals. You want to fight? Bruiser demanded. Fine, channel it right. He pointed to the boxing ring they'd set up. In there with gloves under supervision, or you're out of the program. The men looked sheepish. One spoke up. They killed my friend 2 years ago. And how many of their friends did you kill? Snake asked quietly. We've all got blood on our hands. Question is, are you here to add more or to wash it off? The tension broke slowly. The group separated, heading to different work assignments. Good handling, Marcus told Snake and Bruiser. You're getting better at this. Learned from the best, Snake replied. Speaking of learning, got word from the VA. They're officially recognizing our program. Want to use it as a model nationwide. Stay tuned for the next part where these men face their biggest challenge yet, expanding their mission beyond Pine Ridge County. Hit subscribe to see how one small lavender farm becomes the catalyst for nationwide change. Tell us in the comments, what other transformations would you like to see in your community?